This is Radio Ukraine International with the weekly program Doing Business, hosted by me, Rodion Жизневский, and produced by Irina Samsonova. Doing Business covers current economic developments in and concerning Ukraine and gives topical information as well as immediate and longer-term economic forecasts. It is what we think might give you food for thought and help you see Ukraine from the economic angle. Here is the second part of the edition in which we talk about cryptocurrency as the new economic phenomenon. Every day we hear words like cryptocurrency, virtual currency, digital currency, or electronic cash on radio and television. The word Bitcoin is now used very widely. However, not all know and many don't even guess what it really is and why it is needed and is becoming so popular. Cryptocurrency can be defined as electronic money. You cannot touch it, you cannot hold it in your hands. It is intangible, but it can be transacted and exchanged for a regular currency. Cryptocurrencies do not only act as a means of payment. In recent months, they have significantly risen in price, and millions of people now regard them as a potentially lucrative source of profit. There is even some special annual event on May 22nd called Bitcoin Pizza Day. On that day, in 2010, bitcoins were exchanged for a commodity for the very first time. An American programmer offered 10,000 bitcoins, which equaled $25 at the time, to anyone who would bring him 2 pizzas. The deal took place. The man got his pizzas and the one who brought them got his 10,000 bitcoins. Today, at the current exchange rate, more than $60,000 per bitcoin, he would get more than $600 million. In this edition of the program Doing Business, I will talk with the crypto expert who is currently living and working in the UK. He introduces himself as ZeroXDefined. He came into the crypto space in 2017 as a skeptic, but when he saw all the evidence around this technology, crypto became his great obsession. So we are discussing the main trends and his own experience in the crypto industry. What is the concept of cryptocurrency in simple words?
So cryptocurrency is a digital currency that can be used to buy goods and services, but it's secured by a very strong cryptographic concept, which is stored on a digital ledger, which means that every individual who runs a node on a specific cryptocurrency can verify the transaction. Okay, So basically that means that each transaction is very transparent, is open on a blockchain. Everybody can see what sort of transactions an individual made and from which wallet it was paid and to whom it was paid. That's kind of attractive feature that it's a public ledger. Anybody can see the details of the transaction. Basically, the idea of that is that the users, in particular miners, are incentivized to ensure that blockchain is as efficient and as transparent as possible, because that's how they derive economic value from it, because they get mining rewards.
Could you please clarify the term that you have mentioned before, blockchain, because there are so many listeners who have never heard that meaning before?
Sure. Blockchain is really just a public ledger of transactions. First transaction of Bitcoin was back in 2009 when somebody bought 2 pizzas for Bitcoin, right? So basically, Bitcoin is a monetary network that is run on hundreds of thousands of computers, right? So-called nodes. From the moment the currency is mined, you can track the history of each currency, okay, going forward, okay? So let's say if I pay you in Bitcoin, you can actually see the history of that coin. You know the history of a particular coin, I know the history of a particular coin, and anybody who uses public ledger can know that. And if anybody is trying to do the malicious attack, it's not going to work, right? Because the majority is not going to verify the transaction. And so obviously there are significant penalties for bad actors.
On March 13th, this year, the Bitcoin beat the price record, reaching $60,139, and its market capitalization exceeded $1.1 trillion. In May, US President Joe Biden signed into law a $1.9 trillion relief bill for millions of Americans to receive checks for $1,400, and the crypto boom can be expected to continue. Over the past year, the Bitcoin rate has increased by 1,000%. This cryptocurrency has also received support from large organizations such as Tesla and MasterCard. However, investments in them have a very high degree of risk, since it's impossible to predict how much digital money will cost tomorrow. Why is virtual money popular?
I think it all changed after COVID situation. So when you had a March lockdown, many countries went into full lockdown essentially, and percentage of transactions in cash went down significantly. Most people started using virtual currencies, right? And essentially they were just paying by their even debit card. That's still kind of virtual currency. But then some people thought there was also a trend of endless money printing in response to COVID, because many people received the grants from governments when they lost the job, etc. So there was $18 trillion balance sheet expansion in Fed, and to the similar extent in other central banks. So basically people thought, why do we need to use those fake currencies which are printed constantly, right? Where we can just use something else, something alternative which has much better token economics.
So it's the alternative for that. As far as I know, there is the term fiat, if I'm not mistaken, money, the printed one, that are not attached to the golden sources. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's absolutely right. Fiat money is the money that is backed by nothing, basically. And that happened after the collapse of the Bretton Woods system in 1973, when the U.S. government decided to stop backing their fiat U.S. dollars by gold. And the central bank of the United States, which is Federal Reserve, was allowed to print as much money as possible, right, without any real backing, right? So basically, that's where you can see that fiat money constantly loses value over time.
So could we say that not the dollar, but any type of cryptocurrency would become the main international currency in the world?
Well, so that's kind of maximalist view, right? I tend to look at it way more pragmatically. So there are different applications of different currencies. Some people think that Bitcoin can be used as means of payment. Not really, right? Bitcoin is a very expensive coin, right? The transaction costs for using it are very high, right? So the blockchain is very expensive. But blockchain is a very good store of value. I'm not sure if Bitcoin is going to be kind of the currency of the world, but certainly it's going to get traction in terms of being a great store of value.
The cryptocurrency rate is not tied to either oil or gold. The main factors influencing the exchange rate are the limited emission and the level of demand. In this regard, cryptocurrency is similar to gold, the amount of which is limited in the world, but it cannot be made artificially. A cryptocurrency can, and that is the main advantage. Besides, it cannot be forged. To many, the main advantage of this type of currency is complete decentralization. That is, an electronic payment is made without any go-betweens and can only be cancelled or blocked by the sender, and no one but the sender. This type of non-cash payment allows you to bypass all the online banking systems and make payments directly, without official taxes or commissions. Indeed, it made a revolution in foreign exchange markets. Now the word community has a completely new vector of development and payment transactions which provides a high level of protection and complete confidentiality of the parties. Many governments still prohibit cryptocurrency transactions in their official markets. They don't want to be unable to control such transactions, some of which have criminal sources, leaving money launderers untraced and free. However, the trends of modern economy make authorities think about legalizing electronic money.
As far as I know, also read this kind of information that in the near future it will be not possible to mine again. Is it something limited that in the near future it cannot be mined anymore?
I mentioned, right, that Satoshi introduced Bitcoin as a proof of concept, but then some other cryptocurrencies built upon that concept, and they migrated from proof of work, which requires kind of solving those computational problems, to proof of stake. Proof of stake is a different way to secure governance of the blockchain. Proof of stake, it's kind of, if you have a stake in a specific cryptocurrency, right? If you own some percentage of the currencies, then you get to verify transactions as well. That is also a different way to achieve a consensus in the decentralized system. Basically, it's not necessary to be reliant on proof of work type of mining. That's not necessary for other cryptocurrencies. But even for Bitcoin, some people think that Bitcoin is just better stick to this proof of work because it is kind of the most secure and most transparent way of verifying transactions. And some people would be unwilling to migrate to proof of stake.
Why is the Bitcoin popular? Besides the Bitcoin, what other cryptocurrencies are circulating nowadays?
Bitcoin, as it was initially designed, is not ideal. Bitcoin is ideal in terms of being a great store of value, and it's really difficult to match any competition in that regard. But in terms of other use cases, those are just basically different assets, right? They don't compete with Bitcoin. They're basically used for different use cases. So there are cryptocurrencies which can be used as a means of payment. There are cryptocurrencies which can be used as native token of different decentralized finance applications, which we will talk about later. There are tokens which can be used as being native currency of a database, let's say. So all these different use cases, and you can see how they're not really connected with being the currency of the world. They're completely different use cases.
You mentioned such meaning as token. Could you say what it means?
Basically, token and cryptocurrency can be used interchangeably.
What other cryptocurrencies are circulating nowadays?
So let's just think about the second cryptocurrency, which is actually very important. In 2015, Ethereum cryptocurrency was designed. Ethereum is basically trying to achieve very different objective from Bitcoin, right? Ethereum is trying to become a decentralized network of computers. And basically, the main idea of Ethereum is to get rid of the middleman in the industry, right? There is a statistic that 6% of GDP that is produced on a yearly basis goes to a middleman, to bankers, to brokers, etc., right? With the concept of Ethereum, you can actually introduce smart contracts which do not require any trust to anybody. They are basically ensuring trustless execution of contracts, right? Okay? So the only thing you need to trust is the technology. Other than that, I can transact with you on a peer-to-peer basis. So if you agree with me that I agree to pay you in 2 months, given that you supply some products to me in 2 months, okay? So, and we need a bank as a trust authority.
So there is the agreement, and there is some intermediate chain that could approve that you had that kind of agreement on such terms and conditions.
Exactly. And with blockchain, you can actually do it programmatically with Ethereum, right? You can just write it in a smart contract, and the contract will execute automatically,
right,
without the need of third party. And that's a huge thing. That's a huge deal, right? There are so many different applications that can be built just by making sure that no third party is needed. This can be used in banking, in finance. It can be used in supply chains and in lots of other different applications, right?
Does Bitcoin still remain the most popular cryptocurrency, or apart from that, I heard some speculation about this doggy cryptocurrency. Is it getting more popular even than Bitcoin now?
So Bitcoin is still a long-standing leader. It was never displaced from the first place in market cap terms. Right. So Bitcoin is the most recognized cryptocurrency out there. Second cryptocurrency, which is catching up very fast, is Ethereum, right? It's a very significant project, and many people use it. So as has great use cases in terms of being decentralized network of computer. So those are two big leaders in the space, right? But there are some other projects which some of them are very speculative, right? So Dogecoin, right, it is actually a coin which was created also quite early, right, in 2011, if I'm not mistaken, as a meme, because Bitcoin developers were so serious about monetary policy, like they had very serious foundations about how to conduct monetary policy. And Doge was kind of, come on, guys, you're being too serious about it. Let's just have a coin which is a joke, right? And use it as a meme. Okay, but then the project had some traction at this point in time. But then later on, the developers left the project, right? And then there were found some bugs in the code of the Dogecoin. So it's not really maintained cryptocurrency, and it's not a secure blockchain in a way that we understand that. So, okay, today there is speculation in terms of buying Dogecoin because there are so many influencers on TikTok which are suggesting that, and when you have huge demand, you get this kind of bubble. But I don't see it sustaining value over a long period of time.
This is Radio Ukraine International with the weekly program Doing Business and its host Rodion Żyzniewski. Stay tuned. In the second part of the second program, we will talk about the cryptocurrency market and its possible threats. As well, we will discuss the main disadvantages of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency itself. We discuss the factors that affect on the value of cryptocurrency and attitude towards the virtual money. So, are there any disadvantages of cryptocurrency?
Of course, central planners, right? Central authorities can regulate on-ramps way more severely. They can, forbid banks to interact with those, right? But really, it's very hard at this point of development of cryptocurrency because don't forget, crypto is a global asset class. So if one country bans that, then the most talented developers are just going to flee the country and then they're going to work in a different country, right? And then they're going to derive value for other countries, right?
Were there any intentions?
Yes, India was about to ban cryptocurrencies, and China in 2017 banned it. But then it all got cancelled, right? Because all authorities understand that this is a emerging industry, right? Where the most talented individuals now are going to actually work in, right? There's just a huge amount of innovation in the space, right? And governments derive values. Most people actually pay taxes, right? Once they get rewarded in cryptocurrencies, then they get their incentives, right? And then they pay taxes on that. Like, it's not true that governments don't receive and derive value from cryptocurrencies. They clearly do because people pay taxes. And banning it would mean losing all this potential revenue.
In which countries do cryptocurrencies have the official status as legal tender? Is only one cryptocurrency accepted as legal in those countries, or do more cryptocurrencies circulate there?
By the way, you said about the taxes, and recently I did some test about cryptocurrency, and I made the mistake for the question where it was said, is it possible to pay for the taxes or other bills with cryptocurrency? And the answer was false. You cannot do that with cryptocurrency. Is it really true, or there are some countries where cryptocurrency has the official status, the legal tender?
At this point in time, there's no country that officially said that a specific cryptocurrency is a legal tender. But of course, you do have to pay this for capital gains, right? So let's say if you bought Bitcoin at $1,000, now it's trading at $50,000. So for the difference, you have to pay capital gain tax. If you want to convert into fiat, you sell your Bitcoin, you get $49,000 profit, capital gain, and on that capital gain, you pay tax. So that's my point. But there are no cryptocurrencies which are legal tender at this point in time, right? But, central banks understand that this technology is emerging and it's a huge innovation, right? Most of them are actually working on so-called central bank digital currencies, CBDC. And let's say China is developing yuan digital currency at this point. US is in talks that is going to develop that. The United Kingdom is about to develop their own central bank digital currencies. That actually would increase the adoption of the technology even more because more people would be incentivized to have digital wallets, etc. But those are not competitors to Bitcoin, right? Because they have, those currencies, fiat currencies, they are still inflated. It's a horrible token economics, right? You don't know the inflation of the protocol. If those fiat currencies were traded on an open market, nobody would buy them, okay? Because they have horrible token economics. Nobody knows how much they are going to print, and they are going to lose value over time, basically. That's my point. So, okay, you can introduce central bank digital currency, but this is not a competitor to Bitcoin, right? Per se, because this CBDC is still going to be prone to the same kind of disadvantages that all fiat currencies are prone now.
By the way, I wanted to ask you about the emission. Are there any restrictions on the maximum emission of cryptocurrencies? What is the commission fee and how easy it's to transform them to cash?
It's a good question. So, as I say, most of the protocols have a transparent way to observe how much is going to be printed. Restrictions on cryptocurrency inflation are transparent and visible to all members of the community, right? Because, as I say, Bitcoin, we know that how much Bitcoin will be at any point in time, right? Because it's a public information. In the same way, any other cryptocurrency shares their information about the token distribution and token allocation with the community, right? So it's a public information. In that way, it's very transparent and very easy to make a decision, make an informed decision at any point in time, right? It's your decision whether you want to invest in it, even that you know how much is going to be minted, right? Then in terms of converting into cash, buying crypto and buying cash using crypto, so that's mainly done through exchanges, right? On ramps and off ramps, they are called, right? So basically, those are used to convert, right? And normally, the transaction fee initially, when the whole Bitcoin saga started, right? The transaction fees were very high. There were very few good exchanges where you could do that. But today, there are so many of those exchanges, like Coinbase in the US, Binance, FTX, Kraken. There are so many different exchanges that are offering those on-ramp services. And actually, the transaction fees are very low at this point in time. I'd say less than 1%.
And are cryptocurrencies prone to inflation?
Yes, they are. Because even, let's say, Bitcoin, right? You have inflation, right? At this point, inflation per year is less than 2%, right? There is some inflation of the cryptocurrency, but the advantage of it that you know what this inflation actually is, right? There's nobody who's going to, let's say, in the U.S. government, right? You don't know what the inflation is, right, of U.S. dollars at all.
Right.
It's a random, arbitrary decision by the authority how much they think is appropriate to print given the macroeconomic situation. In cryptos, you know beforehand what's going to happen in terms of inflation. And this information is publicly shared with the community, so they are fully aware of what they are investing in.
You know, I would like to finish on some story part. As far as I know, there was pretty common and famous one that at the very beginning of this cryptocurrency madness, there was a situation when one programmist paid for a pizza delivery and pizza itself as well, some amount of Bitcoin, and that is the huge sum of money now.
So basically, it's absolutely normal to have fluctuations of 30, 50, and even 100% in one single day, right?
Right.
It happens that you invest something and tomorrow it was double as much. And in a month, it was 10x as much, right? That happens. It's just the nature of the asset class. And it also happens that you invest and it drops by 70%. It also happens. It's just the nature of technology. And sometimes those corrections are not really evidence of anything wrong with the protocol. It's just like natural corrections which are happening to like mark-to-market traded instruments. It's basically the point of cryptocurrencies that they are traded at very low capitalizations, right? Normally in stocks, right, before a company goes into IPO, it actually becomes already an established company, right? So Deliveroo recently had an IPO, and it's already an established company with a very big market capitalization. Cryptos are starting trading from very low capitalization, from thousands of dollars. It's mark-to-market. So, of course, this is kind of venture capital, sort of Wild West, right? So, of course, we're going to have corrections.
As our society is developing to become a high-tech community, there is a growing awareness of the need to use virtual money that will at least simplify a lot of settlements. Needless to say, it has its pros and cons, but it's also for certain that in the near future all money will become virtual, turning a new page in human history. And with that, we finish our second part about cryptocurrency with 0x defined. That was Radio Ukraine's weekly program Doing Business, hosted by me, Rodion Жизневский, and produced by